In the last video, we learned how to add an image to our screen. In this video, we're going to take that image. When the user presses it, they're going to hear a sound. So since we're going to use all the information that we created in the last video, let's just duplicate the folder that we made. So we're going to go to Images, copy it, and then paste it. Then let's rename that Images with Sound. Alright, so on the blog I gave you a link to a clown horn sound. You can go ahead and download that one, or you can download any sound that you want or create a sound that you want, as long as you are not breaking copyright. Though if you're doing this as one of my students, for the assignments, don't use any sounds that you've downloaded, please. We don't want to get into copyright issues. Alright, so this is the sound. I downloaded it. I renamed it My Sound, but you'll notice that it is a wave sound. And we know that DragonFire SDK will only use sounds that end in .snd. So all we have to do is open up on the C drive, under the DragonFire SDK folder, there's a program in there called Wave2Sound. So all you have to do is drag your file or folder of files onto the program, let go, and it will create a sound for you. Now it threw it on my desktop. I'm just going to pause and find out where it threw it. There we go. So I just moved it over here. And now I can go ahead and put that into my sound folder. So over here, Images with Sound, double click on that, Debug, Assets, Sound. That's where I want to put it. Making sure to grab the one that ends in .snd and just throw it in there. And now I can delete the other one. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and open up our app. So you'll notice we have all the coding that was included in the previous app that we created, because we just did a copy of it. Now, we're going to use one of the new APIs called Sound Add. And it's very similar to Image Add. It will add or load the sound into memory, but it won't actually play it. So let's put it right below the image button that we added earlier. So we'll type in Sound Add, bracket, quotation mark, and now we have to tell it where is that sound located. It's located in the Sounds folder, and it is called mysound.snd, quotation mark, bracket, semicolon. Now in order to use that later, we want to store this into a variable. So let's call it just sound. Sound is equal to. There we go. Now, if we introduce a variable down here, we have to introduce it up here. Otherwise, you'll notice right now it's red underline. That's because there's an error in it. And anytime you see a red underline, that means you've done something wrong. So we have to introduce the variable called sound at the top. And as soon as I do that, the red underlines go away. Now, we have to include a little mini program that says, if it's clicked, if the button is clicked, play a sound. So we're going to introduce, it's basically a long variable up at the top. And let's call it click. So we'll introduce click, and we're going to introduce a few more concepts in here. So introduce ID. We're not going to worry about that. It needs to be in there. We're going to introduce something called event. Now event deals with buttons. There's three types of events that you can have. There is a 1, a 2, or a 3. 1 means down. So that means, what should I do when the button is being pushed down? 2 means move. If the button is moving, what should I do? And 3 means up. When the button is being released, what should I do? So we have to tell the program that we're going to be using one of those three events. Then we're going to introduce the variable x, and we're going to introduce the variable y. Alright, so curly bracket, this is part of the click program. If bracket event, and then we're going to type the equal sign twice, is equal to 3. That means if the event is up, if the event is being released, if the button is being released, then this is what we want it to do. So curly bracket, we want it to play a sound, and that's an API. So it's part of the program. What sound do we want it to play? We want it to play the my sound, and we called my sound, stored in the sounds folder, sound. So we'll just say sound here, semicolon. We'll close the brackets. When it's done playing the sound, we want it to return to what it was doing. Return space 0, semicolon, and then close off the entire mini program with the curly brackets. And you'll notice it even grays them out to show you that this is the one that you're closing off. One of the errors people tend to make is forgetting to either open a bracket or have the matching closed bracket. So now we've got one more thing to do. We've told it to add the sound effect into memory. We've told it that if the button is released to play the sound, but we haven't actually told it that the image is technically a button. So we have to come along and fix some of our old coding. So we're going to come down to ViewAdd here. We need to tell it that this is actually a button, not just an image. And we have to change it just slightly, and it will recognize that it's a button. The first issue we have is that we can't use the variable button in here. We actually have to re-plug in the original full file name. I haven't figured out how to make it work by doing it any other way. Alright, then the other thing we need to do is tell it to use the click instructions. So after our X and Y, we need to type in click. So run the click program. And then we plug in a 0 over there. Which means by taking this out here, we don't actually need this piece of code right here, adding the image. We're going to leave it in there for now, but we could take that out, which means we could also take out the introducing of the variable button up here. Alright, so we're going to check, make sure we don't have any red underlines. Everything looks okay for now. So let's go ahead and run our program by pressing F5 and see what happens. Okay, just drag this down a bit. So now I've got my button showing up, and when I press it, there we go. So if I wanted to add the exact same image doing the exact same thing in another location, all I need to copy would be this ViewAdd, and then just change the location. But you should already be quite comfortable doing this. And when you press F5, you'll see that your image is now in 2 locations, and they both play the sound when it's clicked on. There we go. So now you have a plain button. It doesn't change views when you click on it, but it changes the effect by adding a sound. Most of you will be somewhat familiar with this concept with the Bubble Wrap app, which is what this is based on. The only difference between this and the Bubble Wrap app is that it actually changes the image while it's being clicked. So as a challenge to yourself, you could try and figure out how to make the image change when it's pressed. But that's not the point of this video, so don't panic if you're struggling with that. Okay, I can't wait to see what you come up with. We'll see you in the next video.